Hi, good day. Welcome to Bettery Hub channel, your weekly dose of transformative business ideas and solutions. My name is Sakti and I'm your host. Now, the key thing is today is our launch of our Bettery Hub channel, which will replace the current Doing It Better live chat. Right. Our channel focuses on two key master series. Our professional series, which we invite business leaders and professionals to understand their X factor and how you can apply to yourself and your business every Tuesdays at 2 p.m. And on every Thursdays, we have our business series where we will uncover the strategies to develop capabilities to transform your business. Now, I'm thrilled to have our guest today, R. Sasikumar, a former CEO and Sports Digital Data, a founder and CEO of Sports Digital Data, an entrepreneur, and a former international footballer. We all remember Suzuki Cup, yes, the same R. Sasikumar. And just a bit of him, Sasikumar, before we bring him on live on the chat. Is R. Sasikumar, 12 years as a professional footballer in Singapore, playing for some top teams. He has won 35 caps with Singapore national team, and his major achievement was scoring an international Cup final during the Tiger Cup 1998, now known as Suzuki Cup against Vietnam. And if you remember, it was the blade. It was the blade of God. The goal was dubbed as the blade of God. And upon his retirement from the professional game at 29, he moved to Melbourne, Australia, to pursue a career in sports marketing. He moved back home in 2005 and started a sports brand aviation agency, Red Card Global, with only his credit card, and built it into a $10 million company when it was acquired in 2016. Now, during this time, R. Sasikumar has been a serial entrepreneur, angel investor in many small businesses, even started a digital agency in 2017, consulting small businesses to harness the power of internet to build brand and business. In 2019, he launched a weekly sports radio show. A lot of you guys would have been seeing him, interviewing a lot. And today is, after a long time, Sasi was saying that he's been subject to be interviewed instead of interviewing. So it's my pleasure. And with that, without any delays, let me bring on Sasi. Hi, Sasi.
Hi, Sakti. How are you?
All good, all good. In fact, apologies for the delay. Your introduction was so long. I had to go on and on. In fact, the funny thing is that I had to cut short the introduction. So can you imagine? There's so many things I gotta have to talk about you, when I'm introducing you.
That's very kind of you. Very kind words, and thank you for having me on your show. It's a real pleasure to be the subject of the interview, like you said earlier, because these days I'm only used to interviewing people.
True. And thank you so much, Sasi. Amidst your busy schedule, to be willing to come on, on our live chat or on our channel. And the good thing is that today is our launch of our Bettery Hub channel. And though we have been doing our live chat, it's an honor and thrilling for me to have you as our guest. And it's really an honor.
No, well done on what you're doing. I think more of such things that need to happen so that you can share whatever you're doing, other people are doing. So yeah, well done on and congratulations on the launch of the channel.
Oh, thank you, Sasi. Thank you so much. And now, in fact, I was just thinking, should I need to introduce you, especially, the part when I was talking about the blade of God. It's one of the defining moments, 1998. I remember I was 21 years old. And that was the moment where I think it was not just defining moment for yourself and the Singapore team, but I think the whole nation was up together. And I think I was one of those guys, getting excited in Singapore when you guys were out there in Vietnam. And I think, that was awesome.
Well, I think it's one of those things where you look back now at 13 plus or over 20 years now. As you can see in the jersey on my backdrop, I framed it up, I kept it. Probably is one of my single most prized possession, if we can put it that way. But it was a great experience. I think it was the culmination of all the hard work I put in as a young player. I was not the most talented, first to admit, but I had a lot of heart. I wanted to get to the pinnacle of the game, work really hard at it, and that goal kind of is a circle, right? Everything comes in a full circle. So I suppose the goal, while I scored it in a very controversial manner, but I suppose that's what makes it a bit more unique.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, I was just looking at the goal today morning before coming up on chat, and it was definitely a defining moment. I could imagine, when I used to be playing football in my younger age, this is the one of the things that I always thought about, scoring the winning goal in a major competition, and you live the dream. In fact, I will be asking you some questions specific to that goal and that moment, you are there. But before that, Sasi, maybe we can talk about your journey, starting from the young boy who used to play under the white decks of Yishun, and from there, building yourself up to be an international footballer, 35 caps, and then right now you are, known as a serial entrepreneur, very successful one. So maybe you can just share with us your journey.
I, like you mentioned, I grew up in Yishun. Even before that, my early days, my recollection of my early days that we used to actually live in Ang Mo Kio, Avenue 10. I used to go to Chongbun Primary School, where I suppose the football journey started. But I was more of a hockey player. I played a lot of hockey, and that's where I'm a field hockey. That was I can say it's my first love. That's where I picked it up. But when I moved to secondary school, I went to Whitley Secondary School, where we were still at Stevens Road. It was quite a far trek for me. We were by the time already living in Yishun and trying to get to Whitley Road. But being in Whitley Secondary School in those days, there was a mix of different group of boys who were there, boys and girls who were there, because those who dropped out from Anglo-Chinese and ACS and RI and all these boys all used to come to our school, right? SJI and all that. So it was a mix of different characters where I kind of saw a different side of life, especially when you are, when you grow up in Ang Mo Kio and Yishun, you're exposed to different people. And once you go into town, their taste is different, their lifestyle is a little bit different. So when I used to go to my friend's house after school and stuff like that, these guys used to live in huge houses, huge condos with swimming pools and stuff like that. And I was always the kid that always looked across the fence and said, why not me? Why can't I have all of this stuff? So I came from a very humble background. My dad was a taxi driver for many years, and my mom was working in a factory, doing night shift and stuff like that. In the early stage of our lives, it was quite tough. Like I said, we come from a very humble background, but credit to my dad, who worked tirelessly to, lift us out from where we were, and did really well, gave us I would say a childhood to be proud of. And, we were not short of things, but at the same time, we were not like, taking holidays and stuff like that. I never remember going on a holiday when we were young, as opposed to my kids now. But the real turning point, I suppose, came when I started I was actually in the Singapore under-15 hockey team. I was in the hockey team, and I got dropped at 15 years old. I was too tall for the game, can't afford to buy a stick, and I got kicked out of the team, which broke my heart. But at the same time, what happened was I had the opportunity to then focus on football. I was picked up by the combined schools team, and I was training with the late Majid Arif, if you remember, the legendary footballer,
Yes.
Asian All-Star Majid Arif. He was my coach. And by this time, I was slowly making a name for myself in the I would say the football circles. When I was selected for the combined schools, when I was playing at Whitley, I'll never forget this incident. My principal then, we were going to Bangkok for a tournament. My principal called me in the room, and he gave me $500 cash.
Oh.
Right? Okay. He said, "We're very proud of what you've done. Here's $500 for you to go and buy the things that you want, and this is like a small reward." So these are the things that stay with you forever, right? I mean, so many years from now, I look back and I say, you know what, it's not bad. So I would say I was then I slowly progressed through the ranks. I was, again, like I said, I was a struggling footballer, not the most talented, but I knew one thing I had the work ethic. I know I could work more than anybody on the pitch, more than anyone on the pitch. So I took that and I said, if I can't be the most skillful, I'll be the fittest in the team. I'll be the most hardworking in the team. Nobody is going to go past me. So I started to play for a team called Gibraltar Crescent.
Okay.
And so much so that my studies, because I was very single-minded about making it as a footballer, So much so, my O levels, I did really badly with my O levels. I repeated again, didn't do anything with my O levels. But while my football star was rising, my education was not going anywhere with it. But I tell you one thing, I was always confident about myself. I know at some point I'll go back to school and be good. But I wanted to pursue something else. Education was definitely not one, but I thought, maybe being a footballer. At 19, I was playing for Gibraltar Crescent under 19. And the second national team. I've one man to thank for all I have today. His name is Robert Lim, one of the biggest youth coaches in Singapore. He's one that I think found like 44 different national players over 30 years. So while I have never played, in those days it was called the Premier League. It was not the S League yet, it was the Premier League. And he called me up for the second national team. The second national team was Singapore B was going to Indonesia for a tournament. So they sent a letter to my club. And at that point in time, there was another Sasikumar in my club. There were two Sasikumars. And he was playing in the first team. So a lot of people thought that it was him that was called up for the national team, but they wanted a taller one. So I went there. I did really well. In life, you wait for that one opportunity you get. You train all your life for that one time, right? Yeah. And that was my moment. When I actually went there and I told myself, I said, I cannot regret this opportunity. Like, I can't let this go because I've trained all my life and I went through a lot of, I would say, humiliation, heartbreaks and stuff like that. Like many people do. I'm not unique to this. Many people have heartbreaks. Many people have and all of that stuff. But I took it all in my stride and I said, this is one chance, one opportunity to make good of my life, right? So in that training, I did everything I can. I impressed the selectors. I was the only guy in the entire squad that has never played in the Premier League. I had not played one game. I was playing in the youth. And then at that time, Barry Whitbread, who later played a very important role in my career, he was a coach. He said, "Listen, you got to be part of the team." So I went to Indonesia with the team, did really well, and was then drafted into the. I was actually part of the Malaysia Cup squad in '95. I was named. I remember very clearly. My dad took the newspaper in the morning and said, "Son, you're in the Malaysia Cup squad in 1995," but unfortunately, we pulled out of that.
Oh, okay. And what about your entrepreneurship journey? I mean, is it something that started once you were in, when you decided to retire from international football, or you actually had experiences, small little ventures along the years?
So I'll tell you a story. This is a really funny story. I was in secondary 3. Like I said, I used to hang around with boys that had more dollars than cents, right? Their parents were rich and stuff like that. So we came up with this random idea. We said, why don't we set up a party and we sell tickets to it, right? So back then, I suppose we are almost the same age. We had this thing called tea dance, if you remember.
Yes.
Right? So see, we wanted to replicate this tea dance and say, let's put on a party and then we sell some tickets and then, we'll see what happens, right? So we booked a hall. Back then, this was along Beach Road. It was called the Singapore Conference Hall or something like that. And we booked a small hall, got the mobile DJs and stuff like that. We started selling tickets. So we went to Far East Plaza where all the teenagers hang out. Hey, do you guys want to come for a party? We tried to sell, we couldn't sell. In the end, we started giving out free tickets. Okay. So this is what we call, on hindsight today, it's called hopeful marketing. It's not, it's all hopeful marketing. You hope in business, right? So on the day itself, no one turned up. There was a couple of people that turned up. We had the whole hall to ourselves and stuff like that. And then a couple of thugs came in, a couple of guys, to gate crash the party. And then there was a small fight. A couple of things were broken. One of the guys ended up in the hospital, and then it was carnage, right? It was just, that was my introduction to entrepreneurship. We lost $800 on that venture. Okay. And at that point in time, $800 is like $8 million, right? And thankfully enough, there was a guy, his mom put up the money. And then we all started working in McDonald's to pay off the money. But she was very kind enough not to take the money from us. She kind of encouraged the entrepreneurship journey. Till today, my dad still talks about it. He talks about, he reminds me of the stuff that I done. But that I think, I suppose, got me started in entrepreneurship. I always felt that I wanted to, like I said, I knew very early in life that to create wealth, you have to be an entrepreneur.
Yes.
You can work for someone, you'll have a decent life, you have a decent job, you'll decent money, but to create wealth, you got to be working for your own. You got to bring a different deal to the table for people. I realized that very quickly, and even when I was playing, I invested in a couple of businesses. One was an event management company with a fan that I started. I used to go in every now and then, involved in pitch, see how they are doing with proposals and stuff like that. I was always interested in being an entrepreneur. I would say that being an international footballer was purely accidental. I was not made to be a footballer. I was at the same level of, say, Fandi Ahmad or Sundramoorthy or Terry Papanathan. No chance. I was never in their level. But I can tell you that I earned my keep in the national team. But I've always felt that there was greater things waiting for me after football.
Right. And it's quite interesting that I got reminded, every entrepreneur will always have a story way back, some kind of a loss or what. I remember that I used to be a Bartley boy and I used to play for hockey for my team. And those days when you are given a hockey stick and there was this trend of having a hockey bag. And I went down to a specific shop in Peninsula and realized that we could get those bags in bulks for cheap. So I decided to buy in bulk, borrowed some money from my dad. And I tried to sell that, and in the end I couldn't sell all the bags, so I was like having about 9 to 10 hockey bags in my house, never able to sell. But I think that the key lesson that I had from there was first of all, the single most idea that I want to just do something about it and take some kind of action out there. And that lessons that I learned during that time has come a long way along the years. So it's interesting. Yes, and I do agree at that stage, whether it's $800, and I think mine was about $80, $90, seems like millions of dollars then.
But I think, it's interesting that you actually brought that up, because I believe that, once you're bitten by the entrepreneur bug, it's hard to go away. I think once you understand the concept being an entrepreneur, whether you fail or you get success, besides the point, the moment you know that you can bring value and exchange that for a lot of multiples, then I think it truly changes your perspective about everything in life.
Yeah.
And I suppose when you look at the most successful people on earth and how they started the journey, everywhere started somewhere, right? I mean, talking about starting a project, starting a business, everybody starts from zero.
Yes.
And unless, of course, you have a rich father that can give you $1 million to just go and experiment, which happens a lot these days. But otherwise, I would say 99% of people have to grind their way from the bottom. And I would say my journey started at 15.
Yep. And Sasi, we have a lot of viewers here, and I think a lot of comments. I just like to acknowledge some of our viewers. We have Dana. Hi, Dana, and thank you so much, for your wishes on the new channel. And we have Gary. Thank you, Gary. And we have Jackie. Thank you, Jackie, for joining us. Now, Sasi, I have a question, or actually, Dana has a question for you. I mean, since we were on the line of your experience, what is your biggest superpower that made you what you are today?
Don't know about superpower, but I think I would say the inability to say, I won't give up. Right? It's okay to fail. I always feel, even with I've got 2 boys now, and I always tell them it's okay to fail. The failure is not the end of all. But what I can't live with is giving up. I think giving up is a cardinal sin. Especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're an athlete, you're a CEO, it doesn't matter what in life. A lot of people give up hope very quickly. The first obstacle they meet in life, they say, that's it, it's too hard. Of course it's going to be hard. Of course it's made that way. So I believe mine was that relentless attitude to say, I'm not going to die today. I'm not going to give up today. I'm going to keep going. Even when the whole world is saying it's ridiculous, you're never going to make it and stuff like that. I found that as a fuel. When people say no, I find that as my fuel to keep going. It's strange enough, because my second son, he's exactly like that. Like when you tell him no, he will make sure that he proves to you it's the other way around, right? So I believe I won't say it's a superpower. I think it's something that I developed over time. I was obviously single-minded about success. I was single-minded about my purpose in life and in goal. And as soon as I got into my lane, whether it was football or entrepreneurship, I had blinkers on and I said, okay, this is the only thing I'm going to do. And I'm going to, I think 50 Cent said, right? Get rich or die trying, right?
Yeah.
I think that was the problem. So I think I suppose that was my motivation. I won't say it's a superpower. It's something that I developed over time.
But I think again, I mean, just my opinion. Don't you think that to have such a character, a never say die attitude, comes within naturally, or do you think that it's something that can be built up by an individual?
I think it's nature and nurture. To answer your question, is nature and nurture, because some people are just born that way, and then some people become that way. I think it's also because that growing up in a very, I would say, a humble background, not having a lot to boast about, and also looking at kids that had a lot and thinking that you should get there one day. Suppose that was my biggest motivation. My biggest motivation was, if another human being can do it, I can.
All right.
I just haven't found the way.
True. That's good. I mean, during my stint in the army, I think everybody talked about this thing being an airborne ranger, and I think airborne ranger was like is the elite tab that you can have. And then the only question that came up to me was like, why didn't I? But initially I felt that I couldn't. But it was a question that my dad asked me. I still remember. I always use him, or in fact, he's still my wisest man I've ever known, who told me that, why can't you do it? Just try and think about it. And I think he did some things which I think the older folks were very good in to make me feel that, I'm not as bad as he said. He called me a borderline son. And he told me that, you should go out there and do it. And I think that somehow made it a case where you say, it's like, either get the tab or die, just what's the worst that can happen. So I guess in that case, nurturing such a character within a person or a trait within a person is possible.
I want to just add, because maybe you have a really good DNA because your dad was a former national player.
Oh yes,
yes. When you told me that, I was amazed, and your father's a legend as well. Congratulations on that. I think so I suppose you got that DNA running in your body, so it's a bit easier to nurture when you have the DNA. Yeah. No. So yeah, I would say the problem is with society today is that we live in an instant gratification mode all the time. If we want something, Google gives us in 3 seconds. So we kind of expect success to be the same way. Even I fall into that trap all the time. And I keep reminding myself, anything worth building takes time. And then along the way, you're going to be tested. You're going to be tested in different ways. If you are spiritual and if you're religious, you say God's testing you. If you're not, then you say, there are obstacles in the way. So I suppose the ones that break through are the ones that make it. Because let me tell you something. The 1% of the world is in entrepreneurship. 1% in the world. It's not a happy accident that you're an entrepreneur. You're meant to be. You're meant to do great things. That's why you're there. And some people look at and say, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm struggling entrepreneur. You're meant to struggle. You're meant to have breakthroughs. That's why you're the 1%. Just like how you did it in your airborne and commando. That's 1% of people who can actually do that. If everybody can do that, then it's too easy, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
It doesn't have its value. It doesn't have its value. If you say half the population got an airborne wing, it's not worth doing.
Yeah, true. During my time, it was like 500 dead or alive. That was the key, 500 dead or alive. So you can be one of them. So that's the only thing that made it unique.
There you go. As an athlete, as a commando, as an entrepreneur, a very elite group of people that have the mindset to reach success actually get to the apex of any game.
Yeah, true. And Sasi, you were talking about your experience in football. How has your experience, not only being an international footballer, it's sports by itself as a whole, molded you to what you are today?
See, I spent a good part of my life being in the sporting industry. That's all I know. So every lesson that I learned, life lesson, business lessons, and everything comes from that foundation. And football, as you know, you need to be an individual sometimes, and then you need to be a team player sometimes. Yes. So the dynamics is always changing. right? New team, new environment, and stuff like that. I didn't realize when I was actually in the mix, when I was actually playing, but I realized after I've stopped playing, especially in business, I realized that I learned what is like to be a team player, what it's like to be an individual. So I used to default into thinking, when I had a problem in my business, I used to default into thinking, what will happen if I was in a football team, right? So the difference here, the stark difference between football and business is, in football, you are judged 90 minutes. Your performance and everything is 90 minutes. Sometimes the whole world is watching, countries watching, regions are watching. For 90 minutes, you have to be at that level that you're going to do proud for your country, for yourself, and stuff like that. But in business, you got time, right? You got weeks, you got months, you got years, and stuff like that. So I realized that there's these two different things. But if I can take the same level of intensity that I had in football, 90 minutes, and every week you're judged. You're judged every week. No running away from it. Every week people are judging you, either the newspapers. And I used to play in the era where the media was brutal, brutal. Not like media now. These guys will destroy your career if you had one bad game.
Yeah, I remember newspaper was the
right. So I condensed all of that in what I learned in football to say, your judgment is in 90 minutes. Every week you're doing that, and if you can live in that high pressure environment and thrive and at least get to the apex in this environment. I didn't play in the Premier League or the World Cup, but at least in this environment I could do that and get paid seriously well for that. Can I then transition that into football, to business? And that's what I did all the time. When I didn't know what to do, I refer back and I say, okay, that game, that situation, that week. And footballers are great. We have a very vivid memory of every game. Almost most footballers can remember all the games you played, the goals you scored, and stuff like that. So I defaulted back to that, and that really served me well. And I realized very quickly that, football has a lot of lessons to teach entrepreneurs, sports in general. And that's something that I'm very passionate about, trying to take that all that learnings. And now I'm trying to, teach others how to work in the same high performance, high pressure situation. But in business, you have time. You have months, weeks, years. Sometimes, you look at some businesses that are going years that are bleeding, which something I didn't understand, because I came from a high performance industry where you can't be losing every week, man. That's impossible. Right? Yes. You can't be competing every. You can't not have. So for me, when I came into the business world, I was amazed at the amount of I would say slackness that was involved in business, and I suppose that allowed me to have a bit of edge. Not a lot, but I thought I had the edge because of that.
Yeah, and we have a question in line with whatever you are sharing, Sasi, from Harish Grewal. Sorry, no, he says, hi Sasi, always being the hardest worker in the room, like you mentioned. Did it transform you to be a natural in your profession? And do you still continue to be the hardest worker? I mean, of course, being an entrepreneur, you are a worker for yourself.
That's actually a very, very good question. Thanks for posing that question. In football, they say you're as good as your last game, right? You win the last game, it's over. You got to win. I think in life, in business, especially in business, you're only as good as your last deal. I used to say this to my team all the time when I used to run my agency, and I used to have weekly Monday meetings. And I used to say, guys, we might have done a really great event last time, or we might have landed a deal last time. That ends. We cannot, rest on our laurels and say that because we did one thing good, it's going to be good all the time. I suppose when you define hard, you don't have to be grinding all the time. Over time, you become smart, right? You take some learnings. It's a loop, right? It's a feedback loop. So you try and do things shorter, faster, with less energy. But the output has to be the same or even better. Mm-hmm. So what I've done over time, and sometimes I, to be honest, sometimes I label myself as lazy as compared to what I was before. But they also come with age. The energy levels are different when I was 29, 30, 31, and I'm 45 now. My energy levels are different. I have different priorities. I have to park my energy somewhere else with my kids, my wife, my family, and stuff like that, other things that I'm doing. So while I can try and labeled as laziness because I say that to myself to be the perfectionist that I am, or the standards I hold myself to. To answer the question it's to always be the hardest working guy, because that will never fail.
All right. And we have another question from Gary. Gary Tang, entrepreneurship can be a lonely journey for most. Do you have a mentor who keeps you going?
Hey, Gary is my ex colleague from Dentsu.
Oh, okay, nice.
I think it's from the media house, Gary. Yeah, if it's the same Gary. It's a lonely journey for most. Do I have a mentor? I think sometimes this whole idea about mentorship is taken a little bit out of context because it comes from the Western world. And, a lot of people look at the likes of Simon Sinek and Gary Vaynerchuk or everybody else and then say, I want to emulate him. But we have our own nuances. We have our own culture and stuff like that. In terms of having a mentor, I wish I had not a mentor. I wish I had somebody to speak to openly. Because in business, one of the things that I really found hard was to talk to anybody about the feelings that I had. Because you can't talk to your wife, then she gets worried about what's happening.
Yep, true.
You can't talk to your staff because they get worried what's happening with the business. Then I ended up talking to myself a lot. I drive around the island and started talking to myself a lot. I wish I had only later in my I would say in my life I have someone that I speak to on a regular basis. He's a friend and a family friend and someone that I look up to, extremely successful himself. But what he doesn't do is he doesn't judge. He just listens and then provides the advice, which is something that I appreciate more than, I suppose, people telling me what to do. Because the whole point of you being an entrepreneur is being told what not to do. That's the whole reason you're there. But I would say that the mentor is somebody who listens and maybe shares a system that's proven. A little bit like what I'm doing with a lot of athletes today. And we'll come to that in the later part of this. But being able to listen and just talking at the right moment goes a long way in being an entrepreneur. But I'll tell you something. Gary is completely correct. It's a very lonely. It's not for all. Like I said, it's the 1%. It's not for everyone. I used to say this. I don't wish entrepreneurship upon anyone. I don't. But once you have taken that journey, it can be very lonely. But I suppose we live in an era where there's a lot more support. There's a lot more support. People are openly talking about their feelings. Entrepreneurs are openly talking about their feelings. They are being vulnerable, which is attractive to many people and stuff like that. And then the good part is you can go online and almost follow anyone. There's a lot of people sharing content freely. I've been following someone called Seth Godin. If you guys know marketing, he's one of the top marketers in the world. More so than a marketing person, he's a great thought leader. The way he approaches life, business, the way and stuff like that. So I've been following him and take all the best because, success leaves clues. You pick the best, whatever suits you, and then, mold it to whatever you feel that, is applicable to your life, your culture, your nuances, your way of life. I'm not sure about this whole mentor, like someone that, because it's easy to pass a buck, right? Because once you got a mentor, you said, he will tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You kind of, there's no accountability in my opinion. But I think mentors should play a different role, like I just mentioned.
Right. And we'll take one more question before we move on. We have this question, another Sasi.
Yeah, I know this, right? Yeah.
So Sasi, he came on our interview previously as well. A brilliant interview. Do you always want to start a business involving football when you retire, or you consider playing on or coaching?
That's another good question. Coaching was never an option for me. It was never, because I live for the game. When I played the game, I lived for the game. It means a lot of sacrifice, right? As much as I was known the guy that likes a bit of a party and stuff like that, but I was very, very disciplined as well. When it was time to rest, I rested. When it was time to relax, I relaxed. I realized that there was a lot of sacrifice. To be the best that you can be as a coach, it's a 24/7 job, right? I tried after I finished playing. I tried to be a player manager. I coached the girls team. I even had my own academy. I actually built a very successful football academy. But I didn't have the patience. And I didn't see that as my end goal, right? And but I knew that I was always going to be involved in business, some form or the other. I was going to be involved in business. I didn't know what form, but coaching was never in the thing. But I knew I would be involved in sports because that was my passion. It was extremely important to be in business. That's something you're passionate about, that you can grow with it. Because a lot of people start business by saying that I want to make a bunch of money, even if it means that getting into a place where you don't really care about the work or the product because it's just cash, right? But I wanted to make a big difference. The reason why I wanted to be in sports marketing is because that sector was exclusive for American businesses, agencies, Europeans, and some Japanese agencies. There was no Asian agencies in this part of the world being experts in their marketplace. So mean to say, people work in sports marketing, not all I say, but a good bunch of people who worked in sports marketing never ever played sports at the highest level, right? So while people might argue that you don't have to be the horse to be a jockey, but at the same time, if you don't have the passion for the sport, if you don't understand it from the ground up, I suppose you're doing a disservice to that profession. Then I thought, you know what, I can be that guy. I can be the guy that brings that passion, the know-how. Funny enough, just before this, I did an interview with the Straits Times, talking about the COVID-19 and sports and stuff like that. And might sound a little bit self-serving here, but it's a good story to share. And the reporter said, "You probably are the guy well positioned to answer this because you understand the business side of it, you understand the technical side of it." You understand both sides. And that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to understand the both sides, bring the technical know-how and, of course, the business know-how into a sports space where very, very few former athletes reach to the top.
Yeah. And I think fueled with passion for that as well. I think that makes it even more powerful for you to be there in that kind of industry.
Absolutely.
Right. And let's talk about your defining moment. I definitely have to come to this Blade of God. For those of you, I still remember the time, your major achievement, defining moment, scoring the international, doing the cup final itself, and in 1998 against Vietnam, it was 0-0, and you scored the goal, and gave Singapore our first ever international title. I remember that I used to go down to see Malaysia Cup. And then, that was like the first international title. So how did that goal impact you as a footballer and an entrepreneur?
So let's start with the first part of it, is how did it impact me as a footballer? First of all, I had already been with the national team since 1995-96. I was already in the national team. Never really got to play because there were other players. And at that time, if you know, the national team was packed with talent. You had to wait for your time. And the moment must come for you. And just before that tournament, we had to play in a qualifiers. We had to play against, I believe it was Philippines and Cambodia or one of the lower teams. We had to play for a qualifiers to get to the final stage, right? That's where our football was at that time. And we were in a pre-season training camp in Thailand. And I didn't play the first two games because the coach wanted to try the other players. And the last match, he actually put the players he thought was going to be the first team players in Vietnam. Okay. I was carrying an injury. I had a really serious knee injury at that time. Only found out later, I had half my meniscus was torn. So the bucket there, I was playing on. So what I did was I ran into the toilet. I put a bit of a deep heat onto my knee. I think I emptied half the tub onto my knee, put a knee band, and I played. So if I couldn't make actually that game, it's like calling the butterfly effect. One thing leads to the other and stuff like that, right? So I ended up playing and I did all right in that game. Not the best game, but I played all right. But just to show that I had enough fitness to be part of the team. So, and that tournament was very unique. If you remember, a lot of the senior players didn't go for the tournament. A lot of them pulled out, and that was the time where Fandi actually retired, Malik Awab retired, David Lee retired. So the young guns like myself, as Subramani, and a lot of other boys had a chance to now step up. And Barry Whitbread had been working with us with the Olympic team for 4 years now. So it's been 4 years we've been working in his system. He trusted a lot of the Olympic team boys, which made half the team. I would say 3/4 of the team that won the Tiger Cup was his team. That we stayed with him for 4 years. So our first game was against Malaysia. In fact, it was so funny you asked me this question, because 2 days ago I was telling my boys this story when at bedtime. They keep asking me the same story over and over again, so I had to repeat them. Long story short, that tournament was, is well documented that nobody gave us a chance. No media except for the late Santokh Singh and Jose Raymond, who's now going to be a politician. He was working in the media. There were only 2 guys there covering the whole tournament. No other media, because the senior players, they thought we were going to be coming back after the first round. We beat Malaysia in the first game 2-0. People kind of say, yeah, maybe Malaysia didn't send the best team. When we drew 0-0 with Vietnam in the second game, then everybody started getting out and said, maybe this team has something about them. We beat Laos 4-1, and then we finished top of the group, and then we played Indonesia in the semi-finals, and then we know that debacle happened between Indonesia and Thailand, which made the BBC player of the day or something like that. We could have played Indonesia in the semi-finals for another 4 days. We would beat them hands down, because the way they disrespected us in their last game with Thailand, we just wanted to smash them. We did that. We went into the finals, 50,000 people in the stadium, 50,000 outside the stadium, 70 million watching. Of course, a few million in Singapore watching all across. I must say, when I say I have a bit of goosebumps, this is what dreams are made of, right? We talk about the goal that happened in this 60-something minutes, closer to the 70 minutes. I always say this: stop. When I scored that goal, stop, and then rewind back my life. Just going back in life, like a flashback, to the point where I couldn't make the team of my kampung team. I was so bad that they put me in the goalkeeper to be a goalkeeper because I was tall. To a point where I was playing for the Gibraltar Crescent. They asked me to go, because on match day they asked me to go and buy ice, right? So I went to buy ice, and I was late because they were waiting to make the ice. By the time I came back, the bus left. So I had to carry the ice, and I didn't have any money on me. I had to take a taxi to Jalan Besar Stadium. When the ice melted, everybody laughed. So disappointments, humiliation, people putting you down constantly. And to get to where I did, and I scored the goal for the country, and to lift myself to a level where these are dreams. I didn't deserve to be there. If you look at the things that happened in my life, I didn't deserve to be there. But it was the sheer tenacity that got me there. Even the goal was, I had no reason to be there, right? Because I was a defender and I went for the challenge, and the ball hit my shoulder and went in. I didn't. So I would say it's defining is not. It doesn't sum up, because it's more than defining. It changed the course of my life. It really changed the course of my life. So I'll tell you the impact. The next day, we were flying back from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City. We were taking a flight, and the lady tapped me on my shoulder. I turned around. She's wearing her traditional Vietnamese. She said, "Are you the number 13 from last night?" I said, "Yeah." And, "You scored the goal," I said. She said, "You're really bad." I said, "Wow," I was a bit shocked. and then she said, "You broke 70 million people's heart last night." Okay, that was the point in time that I knew the impact of the goal I scored. Then, the entire nation hated me for what I done, because they were planning the party. There was the golden generation. They were planning all across the party. We propped up, and we had a different idea about the whole party. So I suppose when I came back, it really changed, gave me a lot of confidence. Obviously, the media limelight and all the other stuff that came along with it. Scoring a very most important, the goal of my life, and then the media then calling it the Blade of God, which then I took the moniker as a good marketing man and made it my own. I have the domain and stuff like that. So I suppose you take what life deals with you, and then you take it, and then you turn it into what it's what it's all about. The next part of the question is, how did it happen in my entrepreneurship? A lot of people say, yeah, Sasi is known, everybody knows him. It's easy for him to build a business. No, I'm sorry, it's not. I'll tell you what happens, right? People remember you as a footballer. They don't think of you as an entrepreneur, right? So any major deals you walk into, people say, he's just a footballer. He's just a footballer. What will he know? So I had to work 2 times harder, or sometimes 3 times harder than most people to prove that I knew what exactly I was talking about. So I had to improve myself. I eventually went to do my master's in sports management and marketing, not because I wanted to use that to do anything. It's just that I wanted to constantly improve myself. I even started dressing differently. For a long time, I was actually doing work on TV for football. I was a football presenter. I stopped doing that. There's a reason behind. So why you stopped doing that? Because I didn't want to be just pigeonholed to be the football expert guy. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My positioning had to change. So I had to sacrifice something to position myself differently. But at the same time, it opens doors. I can't lie about it. It opens doors. There's a lot of credibility behind who you are, but you still need to, you get the foot through the door. You still got to do the work. You still need to give result to your clients. You still need to turn up and lead a team. You still need to do a lot more things. And let's not forget as well, because you are known, your mistakes become amplified.
Yeah.
And I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, especially in business. Backed some really wrong horses, and I paid the price publicly as well in the past. But that is the downside. But I live with it. To enjoy the sweet, you must know what's the sour as well.
Yeah. And Sasi, most of the time when we talk about entrepreneurship, we always talk about the success stories. Where people talk about all the success stories, the achievements you've done. Now, what about yourself? What were the struggles and challenges that you faced during your transition? Especially after retiring from football.
I don't know where to start, but I'll try and keep this as valuable as possible to your audience, so that they can see where my journey was. I was really depressed when I finished football. Because I finished football not the way I imagined it to be. I was 29. I was well capable of playing for another 4 or 5 years. I made a big money move from Jurong FC to Tampines Rovers. Best contract ever in my career. When there didn't really go the way it did, they canceled my contract after a year. It was a long drawn battle for my rest of the contract. I was very bitter about the game, extremely bitter. Like I didn't want to watch it, stuff like that. But I had some unfinished business. 6 months, I tried this, tried that, and I was really depressed. I was like, couldn't get out of it. Like, there was something so empty about my life, because that's all I knew. Being in the dressing room with the players, winning week in, week out, because it gives you a serious adrenaline rush, right? Winning gives you very high. And then I started becoming very recluse. I started not wanting to meet people. I didn't call any of my football friends, stopped watching football. Then I said, you know what, to make all these go away, I need to finish things on my own terms. So I rang my very good friend, Subramani. He was captain of Home United at the time. And I said, hey, bro, I really need you to do me a favor. Speak to coach. He was Steve Darby at the time. He said, I don't need any money. I want to come back and play for the rest. That was in June. I said, I want to play for 6 months. I want to finish my career on my own terms. I don't expect to get paid. I just want to come and finish it on my own terms so that I can put that goals to rest. Right, I did the right thing. So they were super kind. I mean, Money did a great job introducing me to Steve Darby, and Steve Darby was a gem of a man and a guy who understood what a pro was going through, right? What a professional athlete was going through. So he let me play. He compensated me in other ways you will not believe, because even though I was not getting paid, you have match bonus. So he would throw me on last 2 minutes to get full match bonus. That was how great a man he was, right? So I finished that year, and then I knew that, okay, that football part of my life is finished. And right at that time, I had an opportunity to move to Australia. I talked to a few people, and they said, what's it like to move to Australia, to Melbourne, one of the greatest city on earth for me, where in terms of sports, all kinds of sports. I said, would you move to Australia? I said, take my right arm. I'll move there tomorrow. So that's what I did. It's funny enough, because I just got married. 2 weeks after I got married, I left on a honeymoon on my own, left my wife here. So it's not the best thing to do. But it was a sacrifice, but I thoroughly enjoyed my life. That was the transition. And then, like I said, I slowly started forgetting about football. I made it a conscious effort not to be linked as a footballer. I just wanted to get on with my life. I knew I was 29. I had at least another good 20, 30 years in front of me. This was my second shot at my life, my career, and I wanted to really make something out of it. So my career, my move to Australia lasted for a year. Then I came back to start Red Card.
Right. And I want to move on now that we are transiting towards your entrepreneurial journey. But there is a question relating to football. And I thought I'll just, show it out there. And I told you that this question will come up. What is the future for women's football in Singapore? And, Vishalani and her sister aspire to play for Singapore in the future. So, Sasi.
I must say that globally, the women's game is improving. There's more money coming into the game, more awareness. If you watched the Women's World Cup last year when US won it, there's been a lot of talk around the world that the women's game should be taken more seriously. They're looking at equal pay and stuff like that. I'm all in for that. Any child, any kid aspires to go and play for their country. If you're, Vishalini, right, as the name? Yeah. And if I can do it, for sure you can do it. I guarantee you. If I can do it, had no talent, only hard work and the mentality. And I'm pretty sure at a young age, if you're doing the work that you're doing, you'll have talent. There's no reason why you cannot reach to the top. The only one who can actually stop you is the person in the mirror. That's the only person that can stop you. So, but the women's game it's growing. There's more money. I think even FAS here is trying to promote the game. So the future does look very bright for the women's game. Stay in the game. First, you got to fall in love with the game, which I'm pretty sure you do. But I would say things are really looking good for women's football, not just in Singapore but globally.
Oh, great! So, hope Visha, you got the message, and work hard, and work towards your goals. Now, Sasi, as we are saying, people sometimes fear failures. In fact, I think it is one of the best teachers, right? So, is there a specific failure that you can, maybe share with us that has given you a learning lesson to help you to be what you are today?
If I'm being completely honest, Sakti, I only had one success. The rest were all failures.
Okay.
Because you just need to be right once, right? A lot of people think that you got to be right all the time. When I was playing, I started my first digital adventure was I started a website called soccersingapore.com. Okay. While I was playing, I was building. I had this idea that the internet was the next thing. I'm going to set up a portal, be the biggest news portal, obviously funded by myself. And those days, it's not, you don't build a website like what you do today. It's impossible to build a website, right? I remember very clearly trying to pitch an idea to Nike to get them on as a sponsor. Even to do the sample banner those days, you need to code, you need to do. It was a nightmare. I failed there. I started this, I failed. I started there, I failed. I started so many things and I failed, and so much so that sometimes you question yourself whether is this the right route? Is it the right route? Even with my company Red Card, that over the years had a lot of success. Even in the first 5 years, I promise you, I was chasing my tail. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. People were laughing. A lot of people in the industry going, "What is this guy trying to do?" Footballer coming into a space where a lot of them are funded by venture funding. Private equity, venture funding. They cashed up, they go and buy rights and stuff like that. There was this guy, started off with a nice small table at the Red Dot Museum those days, and trying to take a piece of the action. So the longer it goes, you get this imposter syndrome, right? You start to think that I'm really an imposter. I don't really have what it takes. Because that's the lizard brain, the survival like kicks in and then it keeps talking to you. It keeps talking to you, saying, nah, come on, man. So for 5 years, I was struggling. It was really hard to make ends meet and stuff like that. But I knew, again, the same, never give up, never say die. Even sometimes, like my close ones are saying, hey, maybe it's time to call it a day. Like, you try. 5 years is a long time. You try. I said, no, I'm going to keep going. I'm gonna keep going. So I kept at it and I kept at it and I kept at it, and then slowly the tide started turning. Slowly the tide started to turn in my favor. One project was good, second project was good, third project was good. So we kept going and going and going. So much so, it gives you all this confidence compounds. People don't realize that it compounds over time. Your confidence compounds. So one of the greatest stories I can share with any entrepreneur, and I'll tell you this not because to blow my own horn, but it's where ideas originate and it becomes $1 million idea. So one day, one of the best ideas, all of my best ideas, I get sitting in the toilet, sitting on the throne, where I have time to myself. Sometimes my wife thinks that I spend too much time in the toilet, but that's where I get inspired. So I thought about it, say, you know what? And I've always been a guy that always liked the media. I always believe that if you have a media outlet, then you can send your message out, like what we are doing now. So I said, okay, why don't I start a sports radio station? There's no sports radio station in Singapore. Let's try. And I said, how do I go about doing this? And I knew that the EPL was a big thing, and I did a bit of investigating. I realized that nobody had the audio rights to it, no radio rights. And then not everybody can afford the $90 on Singtel to watch the games. I mean, some guys that just might like commentary, right? And I said, that's what I'm going to do. So I did a bit of investigation. Long story short, I went to one of the biggest telcos. I sold an idea of a radio station on PowerPoint presentation. I didn't have a mic. I didn't have a studio. I didn't have presenters. I had nothing. But because the confidence compounds over time, I believed in my own ability, my own idea, and ended up selling it for 7 figures, a licensing deal for 7 figures over 3 years. That's where truly our business turned. Our business really turned, because then we had the cash flow to do the things that we want. After that, we did a lot of really cool stuff. We took the Lion City Cup and turned it into a global tournament. So much so that there was broadcast rights in Brazil. We backed a $1 million sponsorship on that. Then later on in my business, I went to consult for the current king of Malaysia. He was the president of the Football Association. I did a deal that was 450 million in TV rights for Malaysian Super League. So we did a lot of, like I said, if I quit at any point, I won't be here sitting here and talking to you. So failures is a part and parcel of life, right? I suppose our society stigmatizes people who fail, right? He's a bankrupt. He's gone. He's done this, or he's not. But people are just finding ways and solutions to get to where they want to go, and failure is part of it. So, which is why when I look at since the acquisition of the business, I used to sit in a co-working space just to get the vibe of different people, and I look at startup founders, and I'm so intrigued to think about to understand how they think and stuff like that, and having been in this hamster wheel for almost 13 years, right? And their biggest fear is failure. The biggest fear is failure. They're all scared about failing, and I can understand why, right? I can understand why, because there's a stigma attached to it. Yep. But you ask the most successful guys on earth how many times they've been right. Probably once, maybe twice, they got it right. And I think that's where I believe that if you're an entrepreneur, you got to be ready for the no's, no and no and no and no, and if you got to expect the no. The yes is the upside. Right, especially, I mean, you're in the financial services business. It's hard work. It's hard work, right? You get more no's than yes, but when you get yes, hi, and then move on again, right? So entrepreneurship is the same. You got to be ready for doors to be shut on your face again and again and again, and you bounce back and come. And that's the reason why I say I don't wish it upon anyone. Entrepreneurship, I don't wish it upon anyone. You got to be made of steel.
Sasi, there's one thing that I looked up at your entrepreneurship journey, from Red Card Global, and then you have your own talk show in radio, and you are owner of a football club. And I wanted to just verify with you to make sure, that I am right. Yesterday, I just went through, and you are the owner of Admiralty Football Club. So, I could see that your journey actually encompasses a lot of your passion, a lot of things that you wanted to do. And is this something that you planned along the way, or it just, was part of your journey where as you went, you realized that, there were opportunities for you to move to the next level, or you always have certain goals set during your journey itself?
I set goals. I think without goals, you're going to have a marker where to reach and stuff like that. But a lot of times it comes, things change all the time, right? Things are so dynamic in life. Everything changes and opportunities come, then you jump on it. and you try and make the best out of things, right? But what I feel is that I try and keep to my lane as much as possible, right? Because when things go bad, when the thing hits the fan, you must be able to fix it, right? Really fix it. So you need to be able to fix problems in your own business, right? Rather than expecting somebody else to come and fix it. When you have to depend on someone to fix it, you don't have a business. You really don't have a business. You're dependent on someone else to fix your problem. So as much as possible, that's the reason why I try and stay in my lane. I try and do things that I'm passionate about. I have the largest network. I can call upon people. I can, I suppose, from a deliberation point of view, I try and stay in that lane to be the best in that vertical. So I try and go deep rather than go wide on that subject matter. So that if there's a problem to solve, they come to Sasi first to solve the problem.
Yeah, and what are the challenges you face? I mean, with the COVID-19 situation, it's always a case where most of the business owners, it's the people talk about. We were just talking about the new buzzword, new norm, right? So for yourself, what were the challenges that you faced during this current COVID-19 situation, and what do you think is the way ahead?
In 2016, like I said, the company was partially acquired, and I took that opportunity to get out of the business because I knew that the agency model was flawed. After 13 years in it, the agency model was flawed. The margins were getting squeezed. I was doing 50 trips a year, managing people actually rather than doing the work. I didn't enjoy that anymore. And I said, okay, I got to get out of the situation. And I've always been the guy that looked at technology and digital space as something that is for the future. Right. So I kind of deep dive, spent a lot of money learning. And I realized that, okay, the way to go forward is to be able to be non-reliant on a traditional or one piece of income rather than diversifying income and building digital assets along the way. Right. So to answer that question, we need to rewind back a little bit. So in 2016-17, I set up this digital agency. I set it up to learn. I didn't set it up to make money. Of course, money is great, a bit of cash flow. But the best way to learn is deep dive. And so I did some cool projects with some clients. We got paid for it, and stuff like that. But I realized also, again, I was going back to the whole model of being an agency, which is tough. It's tough business to be in the agency world. So then I started building digital assets, something that in the background, when you put in enough work, it becomes passive income over time. It compounds again. And the current situation is it's a great example of what was to come, right? It's not that I want to be right, but it validates what I was thinking for a long time. Then I looked at all the guys that were in my sports business, sports marketing, sports business. They all are suffering. The biggest agencies in the world have to go to the bank and borrow $300 million to stay alive. How are they ever going to pay this back, right? So I look at all these models that are flawed. These agency models are flawed. And yet again, over time and again, when I looked at LinkedIn, there's a webinar, post-COVID-19, what we're going to do. Gentlemen, if you haven't been an operator, you know, this sometimes it really makes me, I won't say laugh, it's a bad thing, but it's false hope that people give others by coming together and talking about the same thing. It's a false prophecy that you and I believe. We talk about it, it becomes real for us. Because we're the stories we tell ourselves, right? Yes. The reality is everything's going to change. Everything is going to change. And if you still think that you're going to go back to what was happening 5, 6, 10 years ago, you're in a different world. So the situation I am in now, I've put myself in a situation where luckily, thankfully, by coincidence or even a bit of forward thinking, is that I've always been this thing to digitalize my business. Like I need to leverage my time, my energies, my know-how, package that, and then give it to a group where they truly will appreciate this. And then they will find true value and they will get results. And then that becomes a loop, right? So we create this community, like what you're doing with your shows, it's creating a community for people. So what I've done is that I've packaged this called a sports business mentorship. There's a lot of players out there in the world, footballers, athletes, don't know what to do with their lives after football. They really don't know. So if I can package, and I was just last week, to start a sports franchise in America costs about $50,000, $60,000. Like they'll teach you how to start early. I mean, I do it for 1/3 of the price. Like same system, actually even better system, because I work in the system. I tell you what works, what doesn't. So I realized there's a gap. There's a huge gap in the market to bridge that gap. So in this COVID-19 situation, last 8 weeks been great for me to now I put all my thoughts into a plan. I'm looking at the minimal viable audience that I can bring my message to, who will benefit most. And then if I can give, like right now, I'm actually implementing my program with one guy. I said, pay me $100. You have a football school. So we put some value to what I'm teaching you. 8 weeks, I'm going to take you from nowhere. And then you're going to add a few $1,000s or, into your business. So we're already part of that. Halfway through the journey, he's already making money. There's one coach that worked with me last year. In the first, I would say 2-3 weekends, he already made 17,000 euros following my system. Just one weekend on a new marketplace. So people are getting results. So I thought, okay, so this is what I should double down on. Meanwhile, I have my radio show on the weekend. Was my childhood dream, my boyhood dream to have my own sports show. And CNA was kind enough, really blessed to have my show. I have my Facebook live show that I do with players, different players, like it was on every Monday. I'm blessed that I managed to get my first sponsor on the show. So a lot of things happening during this time. It's reinvention. I think it's time to truly be honest with ourselves, to say that, you use the word new norm. I think overused word, but for this purpose, we'll use it. People need to reinvent themselves and truly ask themselves, don't lie to themselves, like things are going to come back to normal. It's not. You got to, I think the word is recession-proof your business. How are you going to do that? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Like everything else melts around you and you're the only guy making money. Like the hand sanitizer guys, the mask guys and stuff like that, right? They're making millions. The guy Zoom, right? Yeah. The guy's stock prices have gone crazy, right? I mean, Skype was there all the while, so I suppose it's to think like that. And I think the real challenge for entrepreneurs today is, can you be innovative? Do you dare to be innovative? Do you dare to question the status quo? Are you willing to sacrifice what's been so good for you for a long time and say, I'm going to pivot now so that in long term I'm gonna benefit? It's easier said than done. I can understand you got to pay bills and stuff like that. I understand totally. I'm with you. I've been in that situation, but bite the bullet and question your business model now.
Yeah, interestingly, I think when you're talking about, are you willing to start from scratch? I think this is one of the conversations I had, and even for my own personal reflection when I was doing, it's something that triggered that if I'm going to do the same thing, they have this saying they're doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result is stupidity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the bad thing about stupidity, there's no cure, you see. So the key thing, I think it takes a lot of guts to be able to, do away with your traditional methods to start something different or to do something different. This is where, innovation comes.
Sakti, I'll share this with you, right? So, I ran an agency and stuff like that. And after that, I bits and pieces. A lot of people in the industry ask me, like, what are you doing, Sasi? Like, you ran an agency, and now you're doing bits and pieces here and there. Why don't you stick to what you know best, right? And maybe sometimes out of concern or sometimes wondering what I've been up to. I realized one thing very quickly. That's the kind of chat that you have to shut down. As much as people care for you, right? That's what you need to, say, thank you, stay where you're supposed to say, I'm going to do my thing, because that is the one that's going to derail you from your plans. So be very, very careful who you listen to, what you listen to, especially today in the media. If you see everything is negative, so I don't even read the papers anymore. I use Google Alerts to just let me know exactly what I want to hear, what I want to read, because all of that just puts you in the wrong state of mind, especially when you're an entrepreneur. You got to be in the right state of mind.
Yeah, true. And Sasi, what do you want our Sasikumar to be remembered for, years from now? We talked about this conversation about your legacy at the initial time when we first, talked about having a live chat. So for you, what do you want our Sasikumar to be remembered for? I know you'll be definitely remembered for Blade of God.
Amazing question to ask, because I ask that all the time when my guests on my show. Like, what will you be remembered for? I never thought about that. It's a great question to ask. I think it's two-pronged. One is for the private, the family life, and of course, that one is the public, like how you impact the society and community at large, right? I'll start with the family, which is more important to me. All I want to do is that all I wanted to do ever in my life is to give my family a good life. When I say my family, my mom and dad, for all the sacrifices they've done. So over the years, I've given them really good life experiences because we've gone as a family to many holidays. Until today, they talk about the time we spent in Maldives with the kids for a week in a 6-star resort and stuff like that. Well, we spent a lot of money. Those are the things that they talk about, especially for my father and mother who came from a very different background. For them to see these sort of things and still talk about it over time, that's a legacy, right? To give them those life experiences that they couldn't afford themselves through their kids. That's a legacy. It's not the Ferraris or the Maseratis that you collect. I think for families, that's the experience we build together with my kids, spending time with their grandparents, going around the world and enjoying. I think that's the legacy for my family. I was also able to lift the entire family out from where we were to the next level. That's my legacy. And also within my sphere of family, inspiring the people the closest to me to say, if this guy came from the same circumstances and can go to the next level like that, we can do that too. Especially in our society, I think that's missing a lot, right? Those things are really missing a lot. So I think from a family perspective, that's my legacy. But from a community and society at large, it's a guy that gave everything he had. Like especially when it came to sports, no talent but hard work. Someone that inspired people along the way, made a difference. And there's a friend of mine that he says this all the time. You gotta have your name on the wall. I think I have my name on the wall from a sports perspective, and I'm hopefully trying to do that with my business. I suppose in a roundabout way, that's the legacy I want to leave.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. I mean, just my initial conversation with you over a short period of time inspired me, to start thinking about doing so many other things. So definitely, I think your name is up on the wall. And now the next question is, I don't know, someday you'll be start thinking about how many more people you want to have their names up on the wall, to groom people, to inspire people out there. That could be something that could be also way on the way. And Sasi, it's been an awesome chat. We've been talking for like about 1 hour plus, and I still feel that I got so many questions on the back of my head. But in view of time, before we take the last question, I just want to say a big thank you, a shout out to all our viewers. There is actually Khalil Rahman who has a comment for you. Sorry, it's a bit long, covers your face a bit. Sorry. Fellow Lions Zayat fan here. Wow, from Suzuki Cup, would like the opinion whether goal 2011 was then a realistic goal, especially when it was a national level. And moving forward, is the national team able to work towards another big goal, especially now with sports school?
Khalil, I wish I had a crystal ball to look into and give you a genuine answer on that. The current situation where we are with sports in Singapore, I would say that sports is not a priority. It's a good pastime, a good hobby. It was good during my time because we were passionate about it, even though we are not paid a lot of money. Eventually we did. Today we live in a more pragmatic, practical society where we feel that everything should be packed towards cash in the bank, the zeros in the bank, the education, the certificate that you can hang on your wall. Football or sports, unfortunately, cannot offer that unless you reach the pinnacle of what Joseph Schooling does, right? I think he makes in the excess of 8-9 million a year. But I suppose to answer that question, there's no clear answer to that. We might not, but from a priority perspective, unfortunately, I think, especially in Singapore, we are very practical. We will only back a winner. For every Joseph Schooling, there was 50 other guys that tried to make it and didn't. Joseph Schooling's parents spent almost $1 million plus to get him to an Olympic champion. Not many parents have that desire to do that with their kids. Even though they want to, they might not have the means. So football is no different because while we are here, a lot of other countries are running forward. They're actually sprinting. We have a lot to catch up. And as a fan, I'm saddened to hear that you're not a fan anymore, which is quite sad. But let's give everybody a chance. Let's give football a chance because I think at the end of the day, My two young boys are aspiring footballers. They want to be footballers, and I keep telling them, you chase your dreams in different fashion, right? And hopefully the future generation will prove me wrong and bring us some glory.
Right. And thanks, Sasi. And Khalil, I hope that answers your question. And again, rethink about not being a fan of Singapore. I mean, end of the day, it's our team, and if we don't support our nation, I think that's something to really think about. Any word of advice, Sasi, for entrepreneurs and our viewers?
I'll tell you one thing, right? I think there's no very clear guidelines to be an entrepreneur. There's nobody. Well, there's a lot of guidelines to do this, do that, and all of that, because everything it comes from within. Like I said, it comes from within. The advice that I have is don't think, just do. Right? Sometimes people become too rationalize their ideas. Let's say, okay, I have this idea, let it be perfect, then I do it. Right? That moment never comes. The moment never comes. There's no a right time. In fact, let me tell you, the right time to start something is now. Like start, and then iterate the idea. Your first ever video, you will agree with me. My first ever show, I was on TV. My first ever football game. My first ever adventure. Whatever I done sucks. It's bad. You look back and you go like, oh my God, did I do that? But over time, you get better. That's the way of life. That's just the way of life. So waiting for the right moment to the right things is never going to come. If you have an idea, take it to the marketplace. Find the smallest group that's going to be affected, will get some value from what you do. Impact those people first. Then again, I come back to the guy that I follow a lot, Seth Godin. He talks about minimum viable audience. You don't need 1 million people to do things. You just need a handful of people that really trust you, and a handful of people that you can really impact. And that's how I'm doing my business these days. In fact, that's what I think about all the time. Just go after the minimal viable audience and then impact them first. And then they will be the guys that will take your advice, your whatever you do put out in the world, and take it out to the world and make it what it is. So it took me a while to understand this. If I'm not saying this because I learned the hard way. Let's put it this way. I learned the hard way. And I suppose that's how ideas spread. And I believe that's how things get done. And hopefully anybody listening to this, if you have that idea, just go and do it. You know where is, great quote I got from somewhere. The richest place on earth is the cemetery, because there are a lot of dreams there. Unfulfilled dreams and cemetery, unfulfilled dreams and ideas and everything there. People die with their dreams. The pain of regret is more than the pain of moving. Trust me. Right? The pain of regret, it's a lot. To live with regret, a lot of people live with regrets, right? So make sure that, Saravanan, listening. Thanks, Sasi, motivation. No, do it. It's okay to fail, but it's a cardinal sin to give up.
Yeah, and I remember that definitely. I think it was from Les Brown when I heard that. It's cemetery being the most richest place where that great. You have all your dreams and your goals running or standing beside you, telling you, why didn't you keep me alive? And I think that is something that was so powerful that kept me thinking. And yes, just to vouch on that part, I still remember my first YouTube video when I took, and till today, my girls will be playing it up on our TV, and I'm like holding a camera, running, and I'm talking, and it's like horrible. And it's like, how did I ever dare to put it up? But I think that was the start state, definitely. That was a start state. And thank you, Sasi. And I would like to thank all our viewers, for engaging Sasi, with all the awesome questions. And Sasi, there's so much of information and experience that you have shared with us. Thank you so much. And I think there's so much more that, we can constantly, if time was never a limit, I would have kept on going on and on. With so much questions. And there was a comment that came about saying that Sasi is a good speaker, just ask questions and he'll talk. So I think that definitely is, you are like natural, just out there sharing all your thoughts.
I think it comes from a place being authentic and truly wanting to share the experience, because like I said, entrepreneurship is a very lonely road, and the good things you need to share. That's where you truly become fulfilled. And I think that's where I'm coming from. And the other fact is that I really miss being interviewed.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Sasi. I mean, we had a conversation again, like when I first requested for the interview, and you were like more than willing to come forward and share so many things. And it was definitely an awesome interview. Thank you so much once again, Sasi. And I'm really, really looking forward for all your other sessions in your live TV or your live session. And once again, to all viewers, thank you so much. This is a goodbye from Sakti from Bettery Hub channel. And once again, Sasi, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Real pleasure.